Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and today I'm going to be talking about sort of a meta discussion about Fallout 76 and what I think is the single most overriding issue that's going to cause problems for this game. And it's a very basic design decision that they've made that I think is now coming home to roost, and I think it's going to be an issue with the game going forward unless they are somehow able to fix this on the fly. But I'm concerned that it might be such a basic foundational problem that it might not be able to be addressed at any point in time, at least not any time in the near future. But before I get into that, there's something I just want to talk about real quick to address from my last video, which discussed the beta time periods that we're going to have access to, which, as I said previously, is only going to be between 4 to 8 hours per day. Now, some people came on and were defending this, saying that, oh, well, they have to stress test the servers. And yes, this is the excuse that they've made for the game, is that they have to stress test the servers and they want to get as many people onto the servers at one time to sort of just hammer the servers and see what they can take. The thing is when they're already planning to be shutting the servers down every single day for extended periods of time, what that's going to lead to is an inevitable long queue time, which happens in virtually every single online game. Every time a game launches, even if they just shut down for some routine maintenance, when you turn the servers back on, there's always going to be an extended queue time. And I've seen these last for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours sometimes to get into these games. Now, they're not always that extreme as far as how long it takes to get in, but especially when a game first launches, you can see extremely long queue times. And if they're planning on shutting the servers down every day and then hammering it with as many people as possible, it's not me bashing Bethesda to say that they're going to be having problems with long queue times at the start of every daily server period. That's just a fact of online gaming, and anyone who's played an online game like this understands that that is a problem. If you've dealt with it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're inevitably going to be sitting in a long queue, and that is one of the real problems. So not only are you going to have to worry about, am I even going to be able to play the game today or tomorrow? Am I going to have time when it's available to me? Am I going to be free to play it? It's also going to be a question of, when the servers are actually live, am I even going to be able to get into a game, or am I going to be sitting in a queue for most of the time? It's really, this is just, to me, is not a very good way to roll the game out. But that's just all I had to say about that real quick. So let's get into today's topic. And what I want to talk about is a foundational problem that I see with this game that I think is going to hold it back from truly being successful. And it's something that I think is a core design decision that they made early on in the process that is really going to just hold this title back as it goes through its life cycle, unless they make some pretty severe changes. And I'm concerned that the problem might be so foundational that it's not something that can be easily fixed, and something that is really going to have to take a lot of work on Bethesda's part, and I'm not sure that they're going to put in the effort necessary to fix this issue. And what am I talking about? Well, it's sort of overall tied into the PvP aspect of the game. And I know you're going to say, oh, Coach, you complain about this too much. But I'm going to hit it from a different angle today. Now, the key design decision that I think they made is when they decided to not make this just a strictly co-op game, and they instead decided to open this up into a PvP type of experience. And we already know that Todd Howard has said that they wanted to create drama, and they wanted people to see how they would interact when they come up a group of 4 people, and how is a 4v4 going to work out? How is a 1v4 going to work out? What sort of thing is going to happen? But with some recent announcements that we got over Twitter from Pete Hines last week, what we've seen is that they've nerfed this PvP system into the ground so hard that the very notion of role-playing as a raider is virtually impossible. And what do I mean? Well, we already know that they were going to put bounties on people's heads. If you killed someone that didn't want to be killed, you're going to have a murderer mark over your head, and that everyone on the map would be notified of your location, and they could come and collect a bounty on your head for killing you. We knew stuff like that. We already knew that there was ways you could hide on the map. If you crouch down, they've said that that's a way you could hide. These are all anti-griefing methods that they've discussed in the past. But the new one that Pete Hines rolled out this week was that you can in fact fast travel away from people who are annoying you as long as you do not engage them in combat and enter into open conflict with them. Now, this is a get out of jail free card that is going to completely eliminate any sort of raider role-playing that this game could have had to offer. This is forget about the disincentivizing that they've already done. This is a step where you literally are not going to be able to play as a raider, which they have used as a prime selling point. And there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, I want to do a raider gang. I want to go around and terrorize people. And you know me, I wasn't one that was up for griefing and those sort of, like, I don't want that in the game. So you might say, I saw Dashing Dave said, oh man, you're going to complain about this either way they go. But here's the thing, I'm just sticking up for the player base and what sort of experience we're all going to get. So I didn't want the griefing necessarily, but there are people who did want that experience, and now they are going to not have any of that. And we're not going to have that sort of drama that they talked about that they wanted us to have. When you come up on another player, if they're bothering you, you can just fast travel at any point, just don't engage. Well, there's no drama to that. And like I said, this completely negates any way that people can play as sort of a bad guy. So the role-playing that everyone thought they were going to do, no. This is what we thought it was. It's going to be a softcore survival game. But of course, they don't want us to use the word survival, so let's just say it's a softcore game where you collect resources and try to stay alive. And that's what it's going to be. And there's going to be some light base building, I'm sure. They have already said that the bases are not going to be as big as previous bases. And you can play it with your friends, but there's also going to be this issue where people can come and annoy you, but you can fast travel out of the way. And you might say, well, coach, what's the problem with that? If you want to leave, you don't have to get grief. That solves your problems. Yeah, it does in many ways. No one can really grief you. You're not going to be able to get killed, really, if you can just fast travel away. That is true. That is a strong anti-griefing method. But the problem is that the way they've designed the game, where there's not going to be other humans out in the world, where there's not going to be other settlements to find, the best you're going to get is maybe a cluster of robots here and there, maybe some super mutants who are just going to be openly hostile to you anyway. There's not going to be that sort of Fallout experience. We already know they've wiped away the conversation system. They've totally had to rework charisma because there's just no other way to use it. There literally is not a conversation system in this game the way we are used to seeing it in a Fallout game. So they've decided to strip that element out. That saves them time when it comes to voice acting. It saves them time when it comes to writing dialogue, writing characters, all of that. All quest lines we already know from a previous interview that no one likes to talk about, that Todd Howard has specifically directed his writers to put less effort into worrying about writing for the quest. It's just give them a quest, send them on their way. And we already know there's going to be a lot of Radiant quests in this game. And this all ties into the fact that they decided to strip the people out of the game, which is always a core of the Fallout experience, is meeting all the colorful settlers and the different towns that you run into. That's what the game has always really been about, is the colorful characters, and they've decided to strip that out and said, no, now real people are going to fulfill those roles. And how many times has Pete Hines mentioned that he wants people to be role-playing as a raider? Well, now you have completely done away with that entirely, and all they had to do was copy what other games do, which is just provide, if you really, really have to have PvP in your game, set up a cordoned off section or a different part of a map, or maybe send them to a different map entirely where PvP is enabled. A Bethesda game already does this. Elder Scrolls Online said there's one specific spot, Cyrodiil, where you can go and there's PvE, PvP action simultaneously. It's mostly for PvP, but the entire rest of the game is just you, and if you want to bring friends with you, that's fine. You can have a co-op experience in the rest of the map. The Division does this as well. You only have PvP in the Dark Zone, or if you now they've added different zones in DLC, but they're specified strictly for PvP. It's entirely different, and most of the game you can still play entirely in co-op. And this was a design decision that I think if Bethesda had just not gone with this and just said, hey, let's make a normal Fallout game. We can even reuse the same engine, the same assets. Let's just make a normal Fallout experience and make it co-op. that would have been a game that, like I've said this before, it would have gotten people like me off your back. It would have alleviated the concerns of a lot of the player base. And I think it would have been a much more enjoyable experience for a lot more people and would have a longer tail. Because I don't know, I'm not sure who exactly this game is supposed to be appealing to now. Because it's going to be too stripped down for the RPG fans who really want an RPG experience. That's not going to be there. It seems like it's too softcore for people who want a survival experience. And the people who thought that they were going to be able to PvP with other people, well, now you're only going to be able to do it with people who want that challenge on the map. And you're just going to get thrown into a map with, a couple dozen people. The odds of someone like really wanting to engage you in PvP is probably pretty low. So this is just, I don't understand what part of their audience they are servicing here. I know they're trying to bring in new people to it, but I don't see what the real appeal is other than, hey, it's Bethesda, it's Fallout. If this was any other company and it wasn't a Fallout game, I honestly don't know who they would be marketing this game to. And I think if you're being honest with yourself, you would think that, yeah, there's a hint of truth in that at least. You have to admit, who is this game really for unless you are diehard Fallout fan? I don't know. I still think this game is going to sell well just because of the Bethesda Fallout name. I'm sure it's going to sell millions of copies. I'm sure it is. But this is something that I think could have been huge, and I don't think it's going to be now. And I don't think it's going to be as successful as it is long term, unless, like I said, they could add people in later. If a year goes by and the player base is big enough, they could start adding stuff like that into the game. That's not outside of the realm of possibility. We know they're going to be updating stuff, adding stuff. They've already said that. To me, that's the sort of thing that they need to be concentrating on. And if I were them, I would strongly consider make a restricted PvP zone. It's not like Bethesda is known for its smooth shooting mechanics. Even with the help they're going to get from these other studios, how refined is this gunplay really going to be? Because the animations we've seen in the limited gameplay that we've seen already looks like it's just the same exact type of shooting mechanics that we've already seen in Fallout 4. I don't feel like that's going to be conducive to online play. And this just goes into how much time have they spent with trying to figure out what they're going to do with the PvP, with the balancing, with the anti-grief. How much time and man hours and thought have they put into that stuff when they could have just made this a co-op experience. And I think you would have seen so much less people complaining, people like me complaining about the game. I think you would have so much less concerns, and you would have all that extra time and manpower you could dedicate into putting some more assets into the game. Maybe making a couple of settlements with some people. Maybe at saying, hey, let's get a little bit of dialogue going. Maybe we can get a little more of that classic Fallout feel instead of this sort of stripped down, half survival, half RPG type of game that I just don't see who they're really catering to at this point. This to me was the basic foundational issue. They decided to go with player versus player combat, and regardless of what you think of it, I don't think it's going to be implemented in a very good way. The way they're doing it seems to be almost as bad as they could possibly do it. Either go all in or don't have it at all. And that's just how I felt, and I have not flip-flopped on that. So if it sounds like I'm just complaining no matter what they do, well, the real issue is they needed to have it so it was a good system. And this to me is just really a bad, terrible system that they've decided to implement here. I don't see how it's going to be helpful for anyone. I wish they would just go to a cordoned off zone where there was PvP enabled and just leave it at that if you really want that experience, and just have it fully enabled in that mode. Simple. And just make the rest of the map co-op. Simple. That's a simple design decision that I think they should have made from the get-go. So that is what I think about the overall direction of the game, and that really is my fatal flaw with the game. What do you guys think? Do you have another issue that I should have brought up? Do you disagree with me about this entirely? I'm sure there's plenty of you that do. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and subscribe if you want to stay updated with the channel. I got plenty more content coming down the line. I'm Coach Toolshed, and as always, keep it turned to 11.